Welcome everybody to this episode of Tea and Chi, episode number 17, with my friend Joe, who is a doctor of holistic medicine and MD, and also very well educated in the sacred Indian art of Ayurveda. So, Joe, go ahead and introduce yourself, a little bit about yourself, a bit about your history and your values and what got you to this point in your life.
Thank you, brother. So my name is Dr. Joe Hanovnikian. I was trained in internal medicine at LA County Hospital over in LA. I did my education in Illinois, the University of Illinois College of Medicine. So I did that for 4 years. I thought I was going to go into neurosurgery for a minute. Then I snapped out of it. I went into medical school for the reason of bringing authority to my ethos prior to getting into medical school, and that's that our body is sacred, our body can heal, and nature can heal. So I gravitated towards the principles of Ayurveda, the life science of Vedic thought, ancient wisdom. And it's just, I'm finding so much resonance between that and indigenous medicine and just basically people who get it, and it's not complicated, because let's be honest, we can complicate life as much as we want, but at its fundamental principle, it's easy and simple. Okay, so that's what gravitated me towards Ayurveda. It's just a well-developed vernacular that I can discuss these principles in, and that's where I find myself right now. I'm right now based in Southern California, so I take patients in Southern California, either at my home office in this area, beautiful mountain canyon vibe, and I also do telemedicine calls, and I've been helping people out with some other stuff lately too. So thank you for having me on, Owen. And it's an honor for me to connect to the people who have been watching these shows, and look forward to diving in and sharing some good knowledge here.
Excellent. Yeah, as I personally, what I found that works medically is Chinese medicine, which is Ayurveda is the grandmother, I like to say, of Chinese medicine. When Bodhidharma and the great sages and medical doctors of India came eastward to China, they brought along yoga, which became martial arts, and qigong. They brought along Ayurveda, which came into fruition as Chinese medicine. So we were talking a bit before. Joe and I know each other from Sacred Sons Men's Group, and we shared, as he was talking about indigenous medicine, we shared a sacred Navajo and Lakota sweat lodge together to purify, and had sacred herbs upon the steam. And
yeah,
today I have with me some immune medicine. I have some cordyceps powder, lion's powder, as well as some local honey, some chamomile and lavender, because I got a screaming baby now that I'm a father. So I brought some backup for the relaxation. The lemon verbena, lavender, and chamomile tea is the meditation works, and then lavender kind of gets me to that Zen space even when there's a screaming baby. So that's the tea I'm drinking. What are you drinking, my brother?
That's a good function. I'm drinking a couple things. So one of the things that I'm drinking is my Agni, or internal fire, has been a little bit on the cooler side lately. So I'm trying to ramp myself up, and I made a little concoction here. It has a little apple cider vinegar, some spring water from local spring here in Ojai, California, and then it also has clove, it has ginger. It has 2 different types of cumin, black cumin, normal cumin. It has chili pepper. It has a little black salt. It has, what else? Oregano oil in there too. And yeah, that's just to get my juices going. They say they say a lot of the vitalists in the early like 1800s in the United States and in Ayurveda, the seat of the Agni is, the stomach. So if we can increase that internal fire, which is essentially our vitality, we can be in ease rather than in dis-ease. So I've just been supporting myself in that way. It's very similar to the unburdening formula that I tell a lot of my patients to take on a fast. I do 3 days of that kind of empty stomach, basically taking this formulation. And so many people have been really helped out by it. The second thing that I'm drinking some tea. It's basically hibiscus, jamaica. Okay, that really high antioxidant flower, that purple flower that is in the tropics. Like a lot of the agua fresca in the Mexican cuisine, they'll make the jamaica tea and make it cool, put some sugar in there. And I'm drinking it in addition with brush sage, which is another indigenous plant in the area. It's very good for respiratory immunity, antiviral properties, just overall calming, bitter alkaloids, antioxidants, amazing ally of mine. It smells great, and I just love the way it makes me feel. And I also have some fresh cut rosemary from the area. We got a lot of good rosemary sprigs. I just put it in there, and I put a little black tea in there as well. So that's my tea drink right here.
Excellent, bro. All of those so powerful medicinally. So I would love to know, I love Ayurveda. I haven't really studied too much. Like I said, I've leaned more towards Chinese medicine, but I'd love for you to explain to myself and everybody listening a bit about what you mean by Agni Fire, because I know Agni is the Hindu deity of fire, but what do you mean by Agni Fire in Ayurveda, and what else are some of the healing qualities of the tea that you're drinking?
Yeah. So Agni refers to, Agni is the deity from the Rig Veda, the fire deity, a lot of sacrifice. He has personification, all these beautiful things. They do a lot of ceremony. Agnihotra is one of them. You go to the ancient city of Varanasi, every night they do arti by the Ganga River, and they light the fires up, they blow the conch shells, they do a very sacred special ceremony to honor that fire. And in Ayurveda, that the digestive power is referred to as Agni as well. It's a kind of an energy, it's an element. It's like just how we have water, we have air, we have so air in Ayurveda is Vayu, it's the air element. We have Agni, we have like Kapha, more like the water type of element. Okay, and these are the main ones that we work with. And Agni is really unique and specific in that it is the core, the fundamental of good health. It's was recorded in one of the Sharakas, one of these sutras that are the foundation of the Ayurvedic fund of knowledge, and somewhere it says that Agni, is the primordial source of good health. If someone has good Agni, then all the ama, or undigestible matter that is essentially the cause of a lot of problems in human physiology, is done away with. So if someone has strong Agni, they become very resilient, and that vital force essentially obliviates anything that is threatening it. So that's the way, that's my approach. I incorporate a lot of sun energy and fire energy, and just kind of that fire element in my healing, because that's just an embodiment of my energy and who I am. Other people, they might use some the more yin side of things, if we're talking in the Chinese vernacular, and might strategize, and that's in accordance with their own healing. Everyone has their own different energy, and in Ayurveda, it's the physician's duty to tap into the mind, the spirit, the consciousness, the physiology of the patient through their energy and just their, especially intuition. I mean, we're doing pulse diagnosis, we're doing tongue diagnosis, we're just sitting with the patient, we're meditating with the patient, And even the telemedicine calls I do, it takes me a minute to tap into the patient's energy, their spirit, what's going on with them. And a lot of times without saying, they can tell me about their relationships or whatnot, but I will be able to tap into what they're feeling, what is going on with them spiritually in the moment, and able to take that energy of mine, that Agni, and locate, where it is there's out of balance. And oftentimes that's the type of patient I attract, is a patient that needs balance in that sense. Okay. And yes, Agni is kind of the great equalizer, always, we see a fire can warm, a fire can nourish, a fire can cleanse, and a fire can demolish that which does not serve. So that's the energetic, that's the emanation that I come at it with my patient care. And yeah, to kind of further elaborate on that question, Owen, that in short is how we deal with Agni. Now, everyone in Ayurveda, there's 3 different constitutions that you may have heard about. Okay, there's VPK, they call it, Vata, Pitta, Kapha, and everyone has usually people have a dominant constitution. Now, with every disease, there are imbalances, and you can even localize different imbalances to the level of the organ, to the level of the, let's say, the blood or the interstitium or whatever it is we're talking about. There is those 3 doshas that are associated with each one. So someone might be, Pitta predominant dosha, but they might have, in the liver, a Vata imbalance or so. Okay, so it's up to the practitioner to assess, okay, what is going on? What is this air element out of place? Is this water element out of place with this specific organ? Or is your general constitution, imbalanced? And that depends on our assessment, which is based on the presentation, history, talking to the patient, and our physical, exam. What kind of lesions are present, and what's the imbalance, basically. What does the skin look like? Is it red? Is it hot? Is it dry? Is the tongue looking like it has a film on it? So from that assessment, I can basically be like, okay, where does this energy need to go? Where is the imbalance, and what allies do we have to bring things in balance? And there's a few different things to do that.
Sounds really similar. The Agni sounds really similar to, in Chinese medicine and qigong, we have the Shen,
yeah,
the heart fire, the heart consciousness. And this is what brings light to our eyes and vitality to our whole body system. And I wanted to put this out there before we get a bit deeper into Ayurveda, is that Western medicine is a baby. Western medicine is a young, and now is like a temper tantruming baby. Chinese medicine and Ayurveda are ancient, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years. We don't even really know how far back these medicines.
It go infinitely back, because it's a science of life. As long as life has existed, that's how old that vernacular is. And that's
because it's elemental.
Yeah, and that's the fun. It will always exist. That philosophy, that approach to care will always exist. And in every culture that has a powerful healing modality, it's going to have something that reflects that. And that's what I've chosen in my path to adhere to. And that's what I've chosen to stay close to. Because, in Western medicine, even back in the 1850s, we're talking about science nowadays. I was reading in a book called Vitalism about what's called a root doctor. His name's Samuel Thompson. And this Samuel Thompson guy, he was a farmer. And he was born on a farm, in the West at the time, which was the Midwest of the United States of America. and and he basically was experimenting with different herbs on his farm, and he had a child and he had relatives in the area that he had called doctors for, folk doctors to come to heal. And there were a couple cases. I think his wife had a really bad puerperal fever after her pregnancy or something like that. And the doctors really didn't have, good remedy for the patients that they were addressing. And he just kind of stepped in there, and without any other options, he's like, I'm going to have my hand at it. There's nothing to lose. I want these people to live. So over time of him like eating these different herbs and assessing, the different ways that the body was healing itself, different themes. For example, fever was a big theme, and digestion was a big theme. He would take these herbs that had similar effects on encouraging and supporting those processes, and he'd basically heal these people who didn't, who basically the doctors at the time just left, to at their own avail. And and there was a contradictory thought. The Harvard and Yale had divinity schools where they were teaching doctors how to bloodlet, how to use mercury to heal, how to cut and cauterize, like cut, burn, and maim. Basically, the same modalities we're using in allopathy. That was the allopathy at the time. They were called book doctors, and the doctors who were integrating their practice and learning from the folk knowledge in the area and indigenous wisdom, and Nipi, sweating was a big cornerstone of treatment. That was a means to kind of from the outside increase Agni and surpass disease. It was a big modality that the natives used almost universally. A lot of sweating took place, and it was as simple as just throwing a blanket over someone's head and getting that hot rock from the fire and putting that water on the stone, and just one person sweat to increase the body's faculty, that vitality, that heat, that shen within the body to improve itself. So Sam Thompson, he became infamous. Out of a 5 million person population area where he must have treated at least 1 million patients, they said. And the book doctors just had it with him. They just had it with him. They were trying to oppress him, and they were trying to slander him in every single way. And there was one case where he went to a town. There was this Dr. French, they called him, and he accused him of murdering someone with this plant called lobelia, which is an emetic plant, and but also clears out what is referred to as a canker, which is poor digestion, essentially, like dysbiosis that we talk about it nowadays, or leaky gut, whatever you want to call it nowadays. They called it a canker back then, which was getting in the way of the digestive fire, which was getting in the way of proper digestion, proper Agni. So he was using that and pro-diaphoretic herbs like capsicum, chili pepper, ginger, to increase diaphoresis or sweating in the body, and also external sweat to cure his patients. And there was a case in that town where this Dr. French tried to slander him. Big outbreak of yellow fever came. All the patients that Sam Thompson got were cured, and then Dr. French patients, most of them died, unfortunately. So that was a way of that he redeemed himself, and it redeemed his name in that sense. And just everyone was coming to this guy, and he didn't even have an education. He was just observing life, because he was just close to that. He was close to the understanding of that, and he didn't get confused by ego, essentially. The haughty hierarchical system of, I don't know what the different religions at the time were, Protestant, Catholic, this and that, the other thing, in these divinity schools, and they were backing themselves by what? Science. It was there that was looked upon as scientific, the mercury and this that. It was just a mafia, basically, that was just out of touch with with life, essentially. And it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate that today in medical school we don't learn about Sam Thompson because it's so simple. It just doesn't calculate. It doesn't compute with the intellectualization or the headiness that medicine feels like it should have. It doesn't have a Monte Carlo statistical regression to convince the journal that the paper is being submitted to, like for example Nature and Science, these big journals, that this medication is functional. And oftentimes they're looking at minuscule benefits. For example, in cancer research, a 5-day survival benefit is published and looked at as like some kind of breakthrough in some cancer drug. It's really appalling what they're doing to the numbers and giving something evidence-based validity. And I just had enough with it, honestly. So that's where I'm at. And that was my example, that little story of Sam Thompson about how these universal principles are throughout any tradition, all traditions, and it's just basic facts of life.
Yeah, that reminds me of that story. Reminds me of it's a quote by an ancient Greek philosopher. I'm sure it's Hippocrates. I'm pretty sure it's like the guy that was true, like old school Western Eastern Greek, like the Hippocratic Oath, do no harm. And I'm pretty sure it was Hippocrates. It might have been a different Greek philosopher, but the quote was, "If you're not your own doctor, you're a fool." And then that leads me to another great quote from ancient Egypt, which is, now I'm going way back, is, "A good doctor doesn't make very much money." If you're a good doctor, you shouldn't have returning patients. And that's something that I found that I'm personally battling with as someone who is a huge holistic practitioner of energy medicine as well as life medicine, is that I'm doing battle with people who are way worse, having way worse effects and harming way more people in Western medicine, but are making way more money, so can make it look like they're the celebrity, they're the god, they're the real healer. But in reality, I can grow oregano in my backyard. People can grow reishi in a greenhouse. People can grow rosemary in their backyard. People can do yoga and qigong in their backyard, in their house, anywhere. And then you look at the yogis, I look at facts. I don't look at these bullshit fucking statistical graphs and charts. And like you said, it means nothing because you could lie so easily with statistics. I look at who's healthy at 100 years old: yogis and qigong practitioners. There's a qigong master, Lu Zijian, who lived through 3 centuries, born at the end of the 1800s.
Oh, I think I read about that.
Died in 2012. He's doing full deep bends and full high kicks at 112 years old. He lived to 118 years old.
Get out of here.
Yogis, it's like normal to see a 90, 100-year-old yogi who practices Ayurveda to be doing full leg over their head, swimming in the Ganges. Like it's normal. Yeah. But then you look at a Western doctor, strict Western doctor. I'm not talking about holistic Western doctor or integrated Western doctor or Eastern trained Western doctor or true nutritionist doctor, just strictly pharmaceutical Western doctors. They're popping off at 60. Atkins, the dude Atkins or whatever, I don't remember if he was a doctor or not, but they're dying old early. But I see these yogis, I see people who are practicing Ayurveda like yourself, old and like strong old, not like, oh, I just made it to 100. Okay, now I can die. Like, okay, 100 years old, I bet I can beat you in a swimming and racing contest, old.
Yeah, I think that's beautiful when someone's able to maintain their healthy state of vitality because it doesn't matter how long you live, you want to be living long and capable at that. So and and to give the Western doctors some credit, there's a cadre of Western doctors who are um, um, they're observational, they're observant, and and by sheer virtue of seeing many patients throughout their life, that knowledge of life and pathophysiology and nature of natural history of disease, natural history of healing, that will get communicated via osmosis of just dealing with a lot of sick patients. Anyone who's a human being and is somewhat observant, and they're not bogged down by the intellectuality of this medication or this study or this, that, or the other thing. They'll observe in their patients, what is that quality that is making their patients happy and healthy? What is that quality? What is that internal spark? How is that spark cultivated? What cultivates that spark? What kind of conversation, what kind of intervention cultivates that spark? And I've seen really good Western doctors that they'll be in the specifically cardiologists, I've noticed, who they'll be in the paradigm, the vernacular of allopathic medicine. They'll have their beta blocker, they'll have their Plavix, they'll have their this, that, and the other thing. They'll have their angio lab or whatever, where they're putting up the catheters to open up the blood vessels and stuff like that. So they're seeing vitality firsthand through the sheer amount of patients that they're having, and somehow they're able to communicate and that healing quality, in their presence and their bedside matter. And that just comes from being a clinician on a wide scale. And whether we like it or not, in our culture, the highest volume of patients is just by sheer necessity is what the hospitals are getting. So there are those select few individuals who take that volume and they integrate it in their being, and they're communicating that healing energy. And I've witnessed that firsthand. And then you have people who are bogged down, completely confused in the intellectualization and not taking anything, not internalizing any of that knowledge, not cultivating it in themselves, and not aware of that vitality within themselves, like these masters have done. It's more than just the herb. The herb is just a reminder. The herb is just an ally. The practice is an ally. The true source of life, is God, and that God is communicated in the spark, the vital spark of the human being. And whoever is aware of that and cultivating that is able to in most cases thrive in this reality that we find ourselves in. And that being said, it's an honor to just observe that, and in myself and in my patients. And that's why I find that people who have a strong sense of self, or have realized, have done a lot of work in realizing who themselves are, and what is animating themselves, and what is a good ally for life, and what is what supports life. Even looking, it's looking out in the environment and looking inside the self and seeing the correlation and seeing the signatures that are parallel to that which within us. And because as within, so without, right? And that applies to medicine as well. So these key fundamental godfathers of vitalism and of these ancient medical practices, they were able to see, okay, Boswellia or ashwagandha or this, that, or the other thing possesses a frequency quality that I notice in myself as well. And it supports this inner frequency. Okay, it's helping me work with this type of energy. And because it's all energy, it's all frequency, and it's an ally, and it gives me strength in this way. And that fine-tuned sensibility is, I think, what makes a good healer, not just for other people. And other people, it's their dharma to help other people. Like myself, I I take it upon myself to develop that sensibility, to develop that awareness, and then okay, and not everyone needs to apply it outward. Other people, they're just focusing on the mind itself, focusing on that. All the big yogis and stuff like that, they'll say that the number one is consciousness, is the mind. That is the creator of all health, of all possible outcomes in our reality. Now, medication, pharmakon, in the Greek term, pharmako is that where we get that root pharmacology, that pharmako, that medicine, that drug, what you want to call it, plant, herb, ally, that is in places of imbalance or places where we need, rudder in our ship. That's where it can serve us. And for some people it doesn't, but that is what we have in our outer world as allies that is available to us, and everything is there for a reason. Every single thing in our reality is there for a reason, and it's just identifying it and coming up with this with the right remedy for the right situation. And with that, people get incredible amount of confidence and incredible amount of faith in their existence. There's a lot of panic going on in the current health crisis / health craze that is swept over the world right now. And that just comes from forgetting that there's a signature and there is a reason for every single process, let's say, pathological process. And in that, it's our duty to find that in our environment, or that which is within ourselves, to come into balance. It's just a trigger for people to come into balance and to make an alliance with an energy maybe outside of ourselves, if we haven't cultivated within ourselves, to bring the two together, integrate the two together, and be stronger, more resilient, and just all around up-leveled human beings as a result. So that's my take on what's going on, without elaborating further on that.
There's a really great Taoist saying that flows through qigong and Chinese medicine, is that food is better than medicine, and then qi is better than food. And qi, for anyone who doesn't know, is universal energy, or in Ayurveda you'd call it prana. So what that saying is basically, yeah, medicine's great for if you have something that you need to get healed right away, even if it's something like stress and you have some lavender tea. That's great. But if your food is healthy, it's organic, it's fully natural, it's balanced in your energetics, your life, your Ayurveda. Ayurveda means life medicine or life practice, I believe. And then qi is better than that, because everything, as you said, is energy. And one of the things I found, and I'd love to get your take on this, is that although it's politically correct, it's not like in your face blatant racism, but what my experience with Western medicine is, it's really racist, because, and Western science in general, I'm not just talking about medicine now, because I study a lot of ancient Vedic philosophy, ancient Chinese philosophy, and I'm looking at this stuff. Okay, protons and neutrons, they say some white dude discovered it, but the Taoists were talking about yin and yang as a foundation for the universe for thousands of years. And then you look at the law of, I forget which white dude came up with this one, but every action causes an equal and opposite reaction. Everybody's like, yeah, of course, that's science. Yeah, but the law of karma from ancient India, every action is karma and will come back to you in multitudinous forms, whether it's that you gave somebody that meal and then somebody cooks you a delicious meal, or you gave somebody love and somebody else brings you love, or if you beat the hell out of somebody in your past life or in your present life, and then all of a sudden you get the hell beat out of you and you're like, what the, it's karma. So I'd like to ask you a bit of, what is your take on uh, what is really the power that is really understated in Ayurveda, and how can we bring ourselves into a holistic science and a true science, not just factory farm mind control bullshit science, or here, look at my transfer science. How can we each individually watching this video embrace Ayurveda and embrace a holistic lifestyle and a holistic science and spirituality, rather than just going, okay, I believe this and I don't believe that. I hate these people, I love these people. How can we make things holistic, and how is the power of Ayurveda uplifting that?
How can we get a, what can we kind of distill from that philosophy, if I'm understanding your question?
Yeah.
And how it can encompass everything. Well, that's life. You know, what is life? Life, I mean, Ayurveda simply is just the understanding of life. That's the beauty of it. It's universal. Life is universal. Life is universal on this planet here. Life is what makes this planet, you know, tick. Life is life. Viva, you know, and that's kind of what I say. Viva is that energy of embodying that spark and being a vehicle for that spark, and acknowledging our forefathers, and in Ayurveda and the Vedas, the Upanishad, those forefathers are represented as those deities. Indra, Agni, Savitur. You know, these are fire and water and air deities of the tempest and all that. And if you look at indigenous wisdom, it's, you know, it's the spirit. You know, it's the grandfather of the fire. It's the water. Water is life, and just really humbling ourselves as human beings, and taking away the mind and ego when it comes to understanding of our grandfathers and grandmothers that were there before us, and from which we came, you know, and which we are animated from. All it is that humbling, that listening to the water, that listening to the earth, that listening to that spark, which becomes a flame, and respecting that, and looking at and learning from it, seeing that fire outside of us, and seeing how it needs certain different qualities to be contained and be nourished and to be happy and to be beautiful. And how can we reflect that in our own bodies? You know, we don't want a smoldering, out of control fire. We want a fire that has a nice, beautiful fireplace that is clean on the edges, because that's the fire that's going to serve us. It's the fire that's going to warm us. It's the fire that's going to cook our food. That's the fire that's going to clean the air. That's the fire that is going to keep it dry and keep it healthy. So observing that, the water, we want clean water. We want water that is flowing. We don't want water that is dammed up and stagnant. We want it flowing. We want it clean. We want it oxygenated, aerated. That's what we want the water. We want to, you know, and in that respect for that which is outside of us perceptively, you know, it's not outside of us. It's all going on inside of us in a beautifully and elegantly complex way. And when we see that outside of us, and we're able to take notes and integrate that inside of us, we do that through reverence. We do that through reverence and honor. And in that reverence, this is a key theme that Rudolf Steiner talks about, is that reverence and that honor is nourishing versus critique and bringing things down. That reverence and honor is nourishing instead of things that break things down and intellectualize and cut and parcel and it's essentially confusion. It's essentially a dissociation from the basics. So what that distillation is essentially tapping into the basics of life and giving reverence to that. And through that reverence is when true knowledge comes, because true knowledge comes from not necessarily from breaking down and reading all these things. Okay, when we're learning a language, it's good to study it. Okay, when we're learning the language of Ayurveda or Chinese medicine, and we're learning all the different herbs, it's good to study. It gives us a foundation. It gives our minds something to chew on, to back up and approach things in a concerted manner. It's a good way to clean things up. And the true knowledge of the subtle aspect of health and healing comes from a reverence for the seed of life, and the seed of life is where we come from, and taking a moment to listen to where it is that we came from on the basic level, not any aliens, not any Nibiru or this planet or that planet, which might be the truth in some cases, on a mythological level. I'm not putting my beliefs on any kind of fun stuff here, but what I'm trying to say is that on the fundamental level, what's my hand made of? What is my body made of? What are these basic key, beyond the mother and the father? What are these basic key elements that I'm made of, and can I communicate with them? Do they have a spirit? Do they have life to them in themselves? And how can I integrate that into my body? And that's what the rishis did, through their meditation and their connection, direct connection to source, with that beautiful frothy, they called it a frothy orange hued brew from the grasses, that soma energy, that energy that comes from the greenery, from the moon, from Chandra on Shiva's head. That soma is what was being sacrificed to these gods of Agni, Indra, and Savitur, which is the sun before the sunrise, and Surya, when the sun rises, it's called Surya. That soma was giving these ancient rishis that connection, that knowledge, was giving them that connection, that knowledge, and through that knowledge is where they developed these ancient verses, which were poetic and communicated the frequency of that wisdom, not necessarily in explicit intellectual terms, but communicated that frequency in a way that can only be integrated by the reader or the listener, because it was oral tradition before the Vedas were written down. Could be communicated through osmosis and transmission, direct transmission on the frequency level, which is sound and word, and combined. And that word taps into the archetypes of those basic elements. And here we are, life on earth. And I want to take it to a level where word and thought and didaction is useful as well. Like explicit knowledge is useful, as well as that which we receive intuitively and in our heart. So from that perspective, what we can take from it is essentially the vernacular. Is we have these elements, they could be either imbalanced or balanced, and through reverence and applying elements as they are reflected in our external environment and or our practices, we can bring those elements into balance through breath, through what we eat, through the other plant spirits that we're putting into our body, and through that we show our reverence to life. We show that we're listening. We show that we're connected. We show that we're part of the outside world that we're in. Okay, that's not from a pill. That's from going on your hands and knees and you're kissing the ground and you're asking, what is going to help me? Because that is what shows that, hey, we're no joke. We're here. We want to be here. We value the body that we're in. We value this avatar, this body that we're in, and through that, on our hands and knees, we show our respect. It's like a prayer, and through that prayer, we pass through that process where we become more wise, more resilient, more strong in ourselves, and we say, hey, I want to celebrate this life. I'm here. You know, what is this lesson? What is it teaching me? And we'll move on from there. And that's life. So I hope that communicates something.
How you brought it right back to the elements. The elements are who we are at a level.
So I just got a phone call here.
Not just related to life medicine, but life. And it's interesting because it's not the answer that my ego expected. I was like, the ego is like chattering a bit and saying, oh, doctor, oh, Ayurveda proficient. But then bringing it back to the elements just shows how masterful your work is as a true healer, as a true doctor. And doctor, the root origin of the word doctor, the title doctor, is teacher, just like guru. And so bring it back to the elements, my probably all-time favorite show now, Legend of Korra and Avatar: The Last Airbender. I got the shirt,
oh, cool.
the Great Wave of Kanagawa, and then I have Korra, the Avatar has 4 elements, bending the wave, becoming one with the wave, and then the statue of Aang from Avatar: The Last Airbender is there. And that's really the elements are not only who we are, not only who we will be and who we will return to, but it's also the predominant force in our health, as you just explained. Like, when I'm looking at simple, natural, free resources of immune system medicine, which is what people are going crazy for, but the real, free, most potent immune system medicine is elemental. The giant fireball in the sky we call the sun boosts our immune system. The sacred salt waters and the sacred fresh mountain waters boosts our immune system. Getting our feet in the soil, getting our hands in the dirt, growing our own food, growing our herbs, boosts our immune system. Deep breaths, breath work, breath meditation boosts our immune system. And that's the elements right there. So what else really do we need? Because that's who we are. It's what everything is in this universe. At least I don't know about alternate universes. They probably have totally different elements and totally different ways of it. But here now, we're here right now in this reality. And the reality is synthetic drugs are going to harm you because your body will reject them. Stuff like opiate medicine, which they have loads of different names.
Forget about it,
is going to harm you and going to addict you. But you go right to the elements. You go to the sun, you go to the earth, you go to the plants, you go to the breath. You plant trees to nourish that breath. You take care of your water. You put charcoal in your water. You get your feet in nice, clean salt water. You connect with these elements and you're healthy. Like, you look at both of us. I made a funny but totally serious post about you with your shirt off, looking all ripped and buff. And I'm like, look at this, is my doctor friend. What's your doctor doing? How healthy is your doctor, bro? Like practicing, and not only practicing but embodying it. Like somebody like yourself and myself is going to continually embody that practice and that health just because of the mastery of what we know up here and what we know in here, that heart fire.
Yeah, that vitality is a reflection of the mastery, and that's what I feel like we need, as a culture, as people, as me personally. I want to have colleagues equals who are good students of life, who can put their foot behind their head, to age 90 or whatever it is. I want them to be good students, and being a good student takes good listening, and yes, studying the knowledge that has been cultivated over generations of other good students of life. Okay, and it takes that discernment, it takes that intuition through knowing yourself and knowing your environment, okay, who's really onto it? You know, who's really onto this science of life? Who's really onto this deep wisdom? Who's onto these subtle truths? Who's onto, you know, what the Tao kind of talks about? Who's onto this? Who's living this? Who's listening to this? And because we need that. We need those people to show us, because not everyone has been listening for the same amount of time. Not everyone is listening at that moment. For example, even someone who's a good student, for example, people get confused, people get caught up in karma and drama and this and that. And for whatever reason, there are times where someone's in a state of discomfort. Now it's up to us as their community and their colleagues and their equals and their contemporaries to help them out in some kind of way, you know, through all our knowledge. We're here as a community to help each other. And we, you know, I think it's just really great and valuable that we support those people who cultivate different facets of that knowledge. And, you know, so we could each kind of hold each other's hands on this road of life here, you know?
And there's honestly, in our historical records that we can touch and we can look at, there has been not many times better than now to be a holistic health practitioner, in terms of what you can accumulate knowledge wise, and being a wizard. It's just like, imagine if you went back in time to a Merlin-esque type Celtic wizard before the Roman ages, and you go to him or her, which I don't want people to go like, oh, you're sexist. No, a witch or a wizard way back in time, a mystical person back in the day. And imagine if you, in my time period, you can go on this device right here. It fits in your pocket, and you can look up infinite amounts of books, infinite amounts of captured videos of people speaking, from people that aren't even alive anymore to people who are alive right now talking live. And just the pure information age that we're in is just, if you want to be healthy or you want to be mystical, I mean, man, I got this, like, I can feel my ancestors being like, man, you got this. Imagine what Einstein would have done with this. Imagine what
I wonder what
ancient Vedic astrologers and Ayurvedic practitioners would have done with this. They wouldn't be sitting watching the Kardashians, I'll tell you that much. They'd be on there figuring out the mysteries of the universe, as a lot of people are. And a lot of people that are just sitting in their apartment or their home, planting herbs in their backyard or planting mushrooms in their backyard, are better health practitioners than a lot of doctors. And it's just like, because you have this in your pocket.
Yeah.
Most people do. And if you don't, most people have access to a library with at least one computer. So there's really no excuse anymore to be like, oh, I wasn't really able to get that education that you did. YouTube University, Google University, it's flooded with BS too. But I could look up health benefits of strawberries. Bing, 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 bing. All the health benefits of strawberries from East and West. Look up.
That's true.
Ginger. Bing,
it's
bing,
available,
bing.
And it takes. And now what is valuable is the discerning eye, and also experience too, because it's one thing to know about all that and also apply it, and see from your own observation, your own empirical evidence on, okay, there's a little nuance here, a little nuance there. Okay, what might be good here? What might be good there? And especially when, like, for example, you gave the strawberry example, you got to be able to cut the shit out of that, cut the bullshit out of that, you know, as far as what you're looking up.
Yeah, and that's where people like myself, who's a potent psychic, comes in handy.
There you go.
You got to have that intuition, and intuition is a skill, but everybody's allowed to have it. Is
Yeah.
what it was, there was a saying that the truth never denied the seeker, it's only the seeker that denied the truth. So the truth is there. Truth is like the sun, comes up and down, always shows itself. But it's really up to us to be like, ooh, do I really honor my intuition that much, or will I give up my sovereignty to some external authority figure? And that's what I love about your practice, is you're not the doctor that comes in and is like, oh, look at this dumb, feeble human. Let me just get my free vacation from having pharma. They don't know what it is. Oh, what is it? Oh, yeah, it's good for you. Blah, 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 blah. And you're not like taking the power away from people. You're saying, hey, look, you can do this. Here, I'm going to provide you with all the tools, all the wisdom that I can to help you out. But I'm not going to tell you, hey, you're dumb. You have to do what I say, which is a lot of unspoken words come out in politically correct language that's like makes people, oh, I'm not that smart. Oh, there's like my dad. I was talking to my dad. He got the V. He got
wow.
And he's very scientific, very masculine brain. Watches the news, unfortunately. And when I was talking to him about it, and I had been talking to him about it before and saying like, look, don't do it. These are all the health risks. These are all the people dying from it that they're censoring. And he says, well, there's scientists out there that are way smarter than me studying this. And I said, you know what, Dad, that's bullshit. You're intelligent. You're smart. You're brilliant. Why are you saying, oh, that because the news told you, oh, there's people out there smarter than me studying this? That's bullshit. There's people out there more cunning that are gonna extract money from you to sell you their snake oil. but it's not an intelligence.
Yeah, give into your inner, don't give up your inner wisdom. Yeah, that's so true. We need to be really resilient in our inner discernment, and yeah, we're, as human beings, just by the virtue of being human and cultivating that self wisdom, that self knowledge, we have an infinite access to the truth. So what's true for us is something that we need to listen and not be confounded and confused by that which is external and that which does not have our best interest in mind.
Yeah, and the cultivation of energy and the elemental energy, as we've both been discussing through this, is something that came up today. No coincidence, definitely a powerful synchronicity with meaning. Is one of the thoughts that popped into my mind today was, when I die, I'm going to take nothing with me but my energy. So whatever I can do in this lifetime to cultivate this soul's energy is the best service I can do personally to myself and the universe. Because we don't need more lost ghosts roaming around in the graveyard that have been, their aura and energy is ripped apart from alcoholism and drug abuse and giving away their power and all this stuff.
Yeah, confusion in the astral. Yeah.
To be like, okay, I've done the inner work. I've done some sort of spiritual or meditative practice, even if it's something like surfing or just going on walks, and lived a healthy enough lifestyle to when they die, their energy can be more angelic and then help out the descendants and help out the future generations, rather than being a freaking, oh no, I didn't know there was an afterlife. Now where do I go? Like, yeah. Here's a good
agile. Become more agile in the astral, for sure.
Here's a good medium story that I haven't really shared with anyone. I had my wife's ancestor came to me in a dream one time, and because I
Wow.
do
So okay.
work, a lot of ancestors come to me either seeking help or they want to send a message out, and I've really had potent, powerful experiences through this, and loads of people
Wow.
validate it. But this was one of the annoying ancestors, and they had a problem with alcoholism, and their energy was like this, is like this big,
Huh.
and it was like it wasn't even in a form anymore. It wasn't
Kind of
like
still caught in the addiction loop almost.
yeah. So this being, one of Ruth's ancestors, came to me and said, you're tuned in, you're something along this lines. I'm not doing exactly the right
Yeah.
rendition. She was basically like, you're tuned in, how can I get to heaven? How can I get to heaven? How can I get to my spiritual home? And I said, okay. First of all, she got way too close, and the ectoplasm, the ghost goop, was like a little too close. And okay, so I said, okay, this is a relative of my wife, which is now a relative of mine. So I'm going to check in with my heart. And the message I got was, you have to incarnate as a tree or go into a crystal, because alcohol has messed up your energy, and you need humbling, and you need to just be solid somewhere safe and solid for a while. And her reaction was like, a tree, a rock, and I was like, look, you want to heal or not? And then by the end of the dream, that energy went into a crystal, went into like this white kind of milky quartz crystal in the some field somewhere. And it was like I could see the light kind of restructuring and crystallizing and starting to turn back into like a soul that's not completely destroyed by alcohol. And as you probably know, the uh, Arabic root origins of
Algula, yeah.
alcohol, alcohol, the death-eating
Uh,
spirit or the body-eating spirit. So that could be a good leeway in what, especially in this time where people are so like, oh, doctor, how can I improve my immune system? Can you tell us a bit about what alcohol does to the body? I know it's terrible for the immune system, but from a doctor's perspective, what is a reason that someone should consider giving up alcohol? Because both of us are sober and we are reaping the benefits. How can you maybe not convince, but just illustrate why alcohol could really rip somebody apart like that from a physical perspective?
yeah, from the physical perspective, listen, Ayurveda, it's a heating type of, it can exacerbate, it's a it can exacerbate the pitta constitution in a way. It can interfere with digestion, can cause diarrhea. So physically, when in quantities that's not serving people, it can interfere with that life force, numb it out, dumb it down, and it's not good. Causes cirrhosis, causes other issues, causes metabolic disturbances just with the sheer amount of energy that is in that ethanol molecule. So that is not it's not useful in that sense. Now, on the what it is used is sometimes used in draksha in Ayurveda. It's these little herbal wines that can extract some of the properties from the herb in a way where it is able to kind of alchemize in a way that is used therapeutically. And in some instances, like a little draksha, they use it to increase that the Agni a little bit, because not in regular practice, but sometimes it's used to increase the Agni. So I would say, from a physiological perspective, alcohol has been present in as a process in nature from anaerobic fermentation. That basically when the bacteria doesn't have any oxygen to breathe, it'll start producing this energy source called ethanol, and like you could light it with the fire. Even the body can use it, but it goes up, evaporates quickly, and it is not sustained. Essentially, that energy is not sustained. So on a higher quantity level, what happens when you take an engine and you flood it with, you take that motor oil and you just completely flood the engine? It's drowning in a way. That's it. It's befuddling. It's you know, it is what happens when you drown something, when you sap it in something that is completely wet. It doesn't have that crispness to it. Okay. Pardon me. We got ambushed here. So that is on the psycho-spiritual level. It is, what it does is it essentially drowns out the synapse in the brain, and it's not allowing for that crisp fire of the electrical transmission to take place. The myelin is kind of drowned out in a way, and it just makes things soupy, unclear, uncrisp when it's used in an inebriant type of way. It makes people's energy uncrisp, and it does. I don't know if I'm on 100% on board with that meme that has been circulating with the how it's like devouring something, but it definitely in some ways, like water, how it consumes someone who's drowning, it can consume a spirit that way. But as far as the way that I see it is that forgive me, is that the way that I see it is that it creates a milieu in the human body that is completely divorced and dissociated from a real taking in of spirit and a real connection with the life force. It's basically a step out in a way. It's a walking out, and okay, I'll see you, give me 15, give me time out, give me it's a cop out in a way. And our society has really embraced that quote unquote smoke break that alcohol provides, on the spiritual plane. And when you check out too much, it can have a lot of detrimental effects. And when you're always checked out, that's when that's when someone's setting themselves up for just a complete divorce, and complete checkout from what they were here to do, their dharma, their karma. And it's just doing them a disservice. Can it be an ally in some ways as far as chemically? I don't know. I'm thinking about the ancient mystery schools of Dionysus and the qigong, where they took these bowls and they filled them with different spirits and also like ergot. And people were taking poison and getting inebriated and getting taken over by the spirit of whatever the temple rite was, whether it was Dionysus or whoever it was. And or let's say if it was a component of what have you, but it's really unlikely that it was a huge component of that. It's probably the constituents of what was filling the qigong was probably something else. But in our current practice, and in the practice I read, it's just what's called tamas. It's tamas is that guna that is lethargy and decay, and it's not consistent with that which makes life thrive, which is sattva guna. So
Yeah.
it's just something that you want to stay away from generally, and it's not beneficial to. It just drowns out vitality. It drowns out everything. Can it be used strategically as a pharmaco, as a medicine, in conjunction with a couple balancing herbs? Maybe. I don't use drugs in my practice, which is the therapeutic line. But I don't know. In Chinese medicine, have you ever heard of Ron Tea Garden?
Heard of what?
Ron Teagarden.
Nope.
He's a big Chinese medicine. He does a lot of the supplements over in the States, and a lot of the extractions and decoctions are in an alcohol base, and sometimes that solvent can be useful in bringing that spirit of the plant into the mother spirit like that, and it can be used in small quantities, but it's not an inebriational. It's not drowning someone out. It's basically like have you ever had a car and the carburetor is having issues, and you're spraying that high flammable fuel in there to get it going a little bit? It's kind of in that sense can be a provoker, but these are things that we could fall on to as like different knowledge of fundamentals of human physiology and life in order to use. But I mean, in the sense of leaning on something and depending on something all the time, and even taking something without with the that has the intention of that inebriation, whether it's a beverage like a beer from the bar, or that's mass produced with the intention of inebriating, like a wine cooler, or these things or the other things, that energetic is completely out of alignment versus like a spagyric or something like that.
Yeah, the alchemy, if we look at like alchemical related back to nature, as you're saying, the death and decay, when ethanol is produced, is when like a tree falls to the ground, and the spirit is I love when you used evaporating. I thought that was a great way of explaining it, is that when something, even humans, it will start to turn into alcohol. So if we look at it as this kind of way I perceive it, whether this is right or wrong is up to Ja to decide, Brahma to decide.
Yeah.
Is that alcohol is alchemical death. So like you die, alcohol is produced, then your spirit leaves the body. So if you want to die, then drink loads of alcohol. And I think alcoholics prove that to us every day. And then when we look at the death that is and decay that is present in their body, mind, and soul. But I feel really sorry for people who at an early age binge drink these oftentimes waste liquors, or like Coca-Cola, Pepsi makes Bacardi and all these name brand alcohols from their waste products that they were just going to throw out anyways. So then they turn into alcohol. And it's also really harmful to the waters. It takes some absurd amount of clean water to create a beer and to create vodka and to create all these different alcohols. It's harmful, doing harm to the water. And you won't see that on the mainstream media because they profit off it. You won't see major scientific studies showing that because Coca-Cola and Pepsi are gigantic mega corporations that have more money than we probably will ever see in our bank account in our lifetime. But I saw one article about it from a woman in Africa. Who, she is a scientist, and she was saying that the rivers nearby the alcohol plant they were originally crystal clear, pristine waters for her village, and they had been completely decimated and made into like this nasty goop by the alcohol companies. And that's happening on a larger scale than
are they just dumping the alcohol into the waterway or what?
It was from the processing. So like they had to use the river water to create this alcohol. And then by the time they finished creating, there was wastewater that was coming out of it. So it was horrible use of like taking clean water out, but like something to do with the refinement process of it.
That's the industrial process.
Yeah. Created dirty, skanky rivers. And if the elements are unclean, we're gonna die. That sounds doomsday, doom and gloom.
I mean,
Oh,
that's unfortunate. Yeah, that's,
yeah,
yeah, of course. Water is life. Water is life. So that's the fact of the matter. Water is life, and yeah, the natural world needs to be protected in order to sustain that life, and that's where that reverence comes in. And when you're truly reverent of your body and you're reverent of the outside world of life, you don't put together an industrial alcohol production corporation. You don't put together. You're not taking that stuff in. Just common nature, common sense. You're using the elements. You're using this and that and the other thing to your benefit, and it just makes intuitive sense, and it makes practical sense, it makes physiological sense, as we're not as attracted to that kind of thing. So
absolutely.
so,
That's
so
love how you
that's the
keep
fact.
going to the elements, how you keep coming back to the reverence, and that's something that was told to me in meditation one time. Receive a lot of messages through deep meditation, and one of the messages was I was kind of thinking like, should I get more out there in terms of helping people out with uh, like the nutritional wisdom I know, and they're like, oh no, it was that as well as like going and advocating for certain lifestyles that promote healthier living. And the message I got was you need to teach people to be more meditative and more reverent and more loving. Because if you teach people love and you love people, they're not going to do any harm to nature. They're not going to support people who harm nature. If you can activate love as the true and one and only answer in life, whatever you love, you could love good things, you could love evil things, you could love anything. Love being that answer, then you're not going to do harm to the trees. You're not going to do harm to the rivers because you love the river. It's like your child now. It's like you're like your grandmother, grandfather. You love that river. So why would you shit in it? Why would you put an alcohol complex on that river? You love it. And
Right.
that I love that you keep bringing it back to the reverence because we need those building blocks, those foundations to say, okay, what's the answer? What's the answer here? And I think throughout this talk, probably going to finish up soon, but I think you hit the nail right on the head, bang, 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 of what
Yeah,
we
we talked about some good stuff.
absolutely, absolutely. So I'm going to finish that tea.
I think we really, tapped into some good truths, and it was really nice to catch up with you, Owen, and tap into the knowledge that you've been cultivating and the skills and the wizardry and the what you've been up to in the Isle of the UK over there. So that's pretty cool, man.
Yeah, likewise, brother. When things uh, cool down a bit, we'd love to have you over on the sacred island of Avalon. I've been trying to get Sacred Sons to come out here. Apparently, some royalty woman, some royal duchess or something, invited Sacred Sons to their property. I don't know if that's some sort of like, ooh, look at these handsome boys,
Ooh,
royalty. I'm just gonna bring them over here, or
I
it's
like
like
that.
genuine love of what the practice is. But either way, I want my brothers to come to the UK because it's hard to find empowered, uh, loving brothers here because there's just been people are more interested in things that don't really mean much here. Unfortunately, there's loads of
Oh, no.
wizards that stay true to the old Celtic Avalon ways, but there's also a lot of drunkards who just want to watch sweaty boys kick balls through nets in soccer or
Footy. Yeah.
football.
Hooligans.
Yeah, hooligans. Yeah, the hooligans. But yeah, it was absolutely an honor to have you on this show, my brother. Is there anything else you want to say to everyone before we head out?
It was an honor to be on your show, brother, and thank you so much. That's what we're cultivating here. That's what we're holding on to. You know, let us all be students of life, and let us all listen from each other. You know, and have each other's backs that way. And you know, keep our eyes open, because something in our blind spot might be able to serve our neighbor or our friend. You know, near us. Everyone has their own piece in the puzzle, and we can all help each other out.
Absolutely. Excellent. Big love to you, brother. It's so good to catch up with you. And thank you to everyone who chose to watch this video, or maybe accidentally watch this video. I don't know. But make sure to share, like, subscribe, and whatever else you could do. Put it on your playlist or whatever. And also, you can find my brother here, Dr. Joe, at Vital Harmonics MD on Instagram, right?
Right on. Vital Harmonics MD. Yep.
Vital Harmonics MD. You can reach out to him, and you can also reach out to myself. Yin Yang here. Energy medicine is all one, baby. Big love to you all, and wishing you optimal health, wealth, and happiness. Health is wealth. Ital is vital.
Viva.